It's 7 p.m. Monday, May 20th, here in Seoul.
Coming up on NewsCenter tonight. South Korean President Moon Jae-in stresses the urgency of the government's extra budget bill to help people's lives, urging lawmakers to get it passed.
Seoul is to soon start procedures on delivering its $8 million donation to North Korea through international bodies.
South Korea's finance minister warns U.S. China trade tensions could affect the local economy more than expected as Korea's financial markets become more volatile.
And Google pulls Huawei's Android license after President Trump blacklisted the Chinese tech firm. NewsCenter begins now.
Thank you for starting your week with us. Welcome to Arirang News Center. I'm Handan in Seoul.
And I'm Doaram. Thank you, as always, for joining us this evening. Our top story, President Moon Jae-in says the rival political parties should come together to review the passage and the handling of the supplementary budget bill that had been stalled at the parliament for weeks now over partisan differences.
It's the sixth time already this month for the president to call on the urgency of passing the budget bill. Our Kim Mo-kyun leading us off tonight.
President Moon Jae-in calling for bipartisan support to help the economy. Speaking to his top aides in the weekly meeting, the president called on lawmakers to review the government's extra budget bill worth some $5.6 billion, which has been stalled in parliament over partisan differences.
이번 추경은 미세먼지와 강원도 산불, 포항 지진 등 재해 대책 예산과 경기 대응 예산 두 가지로 구성되어 있습니다. 어느 것 하나 시급하지 않은 것이 없습니다.
It's the sixth time this month that the president has called on the parties to review and pass the extra budget, emphasizing the importance of passing it in a timely manner. The government had submitted its version of the extra budget to Parliament on the 25th of last month in hopes of buttressing regions hit by natural disasters like wildfires and earthquakes, as well as preemptively preparing for economic contingencies. But the rival parties have been in a standoff over giving fast-track status to an electoral reform bill so that it would be in effect in time for next year's general election in April. So affairs in Parliament have been put off for weeks, including the review of the budget bill. President Moon even noted that plans for an extra budget were recently welcomed by the IMF and emphasized the need to time the spending to get the desired outcomes. The president, also turning to new growth engines for the Korean economy, directed his aides to promote the biohealth industry. Referring to Korea recently making it onto the EU's whitelist for pharmaceuticals, which is expected to help with exports, President Moon called for efforts to improve Korea's competitiveness in the field and hinted at a government-led innovative strategy for the field in the near future. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
And hopes are rising whether the much-needed extra budget bill could be passed soon as the floor leaders of the ruling Democratic Party, the main opposition Liberty Korea Party, and the minor opposition Bareun Mire Party are set to meet for a beer gathering tonight in hopes of ending a prolonged standstill at the National Assembly. It'll be the first three-way meeting between them as two of the floor leaders were newly elected this month. Eyes are on whether they'll be able to find a much-needed breakthrough, especially with lawmakers having to deliberate on bills related to people's livelihoods, as well as the government's extra budget proposal. The National Assembly has been out of action for weeks now, with tensions peaking after the ruling party and a minor opposition bloc fast-tracked key reform bills, despite the main opposition party's strong resistance. South Korea will seek to establish a state investigative agency that will manage probes by the police as part of plans to reform the police organization. The decision was reached between the ruling Democratic Party, the government, and the presidential office on Monday. The three sides said the agency will be aimed at preventing high-ranking officers or those not related to investigations from intervening. They also agreed to push to revise laws to block intelligence officers from becoming involved in illegal acts, such as surveillance of civilians or political intervention. This comes amid concerns the police may become too powerful after the National Assembly introduced a bill that would boost their investigative rights by diluting those of the prosecution. The three sides said the bill is not about empowering a particular organization, but instead balancing their powers to keep each side in check. They also vowed to drop further measures to ensure the police don't abuse their power, as well as speed up efforts to introduce an autonomous police system under which some authority will be transferred to local governments from the state police. More details emerged on why the leaders of North Korea and the U.S. abruptly ended their second summit meeting without a deal in Hanoi last February. In an interview with Fox News that aired Sunday, U.S. President Donald Trump stated that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un had offered to shut down one or two of its 5 nuclear facilities. The remarks came as Trump was reiterating his administration's stance in suppressing Iran's nuclear proliferation while underscoring his reluctance to go to war. President Trump said he told Kim during the Hanoi summit that the regime wasn't ready to negotiate with the U.S., pointing to the other 3 remaining nuclear facilities, and emphasized his willingness to strike a big deal with the North while keeping sanctions on the regime. Seoul is soon to start some procedures to deliver its $8 million donation to the World Food Program and UNICEF, while continuing to hear from the public on sending food aid to Pyongyang separately from the donation. North Korea is yet to respond to Seoul's humanitarian assistance plans. Our Oh Jung-hee has more.
South Korea is soon to begin the procedures required for its contribution to the UN for humanitarian assistance to North Korea. Seoul's Unification Ministry had announced last Friday that it'll donate $8 million to the World Food Program and UNICEF for projects in North Korea on nutritional support and maternal and child health.
Related divisions will keep communicating with the World Food Program and UNICEF to prepare for specific plans.
In 2017, South Korea had decided to offer the North $8 million of humanitarian aid through UNICEF and the World Food Program. That assistance, which had to be given by 2018, was never sent. Seoul is to first discuss with the UN agencies about how the money should be spent and then go through legislative procedures to deliver that fund. On top of that, Seoul is preparing its food aid to the North separately.
The government will collect opinions from the public and review options of whether to provide food aid directly to the North or indirectly through an international organization.
Seoul's Unification Minister met last week with religious and civic groups and local experts and will meet with university heads and religious leaders this week to discuss the issue. On Monday, Kim Yeon-chul met with Archbishop Hyginus Kim Hee-jung.
Those who had sour ties were politicians and the government. For ordinary citizens, being able to eat and live is a more important issue, and I think it's wrong to use food as weapons and threaten each other.
There's been no response yet from the North on Seoul's humanitarian aid announcement. For the past 3 days, Pyongyang's propaganda outlets have only urged the South to, quote, stop depending on foreign forces, criticizing Seoul's recent bilateral working group meeting with Washington. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Turning to other news now, and Japan has requested for the forced labor ruling dispute with South Korea to be settled through arbitration by a third party. Seoul's Foreign Affairs Ministry confirmed Monday that Tokyo made such a request earlier in the day. This comes as Seoul has not yet given a clear answer to Tokyo's request for talks on the matter. In their 1965 agreement, which normalized diplomatic ties, Seoul and Tokyo agreed to hold talks or an arbitration if there is an issue regarding the agreement. However, the arbitration by a third party cannot take place unless accepted by both sides. Last year, South Korea's Supreme Court ordered Japanese companies to compensate the Koreans they forced to work for them before and during World War II. But with the Japanese firms refusing to do so, the victims earlier in the month requested that the court force the sale of the firm's local assets. South Korea is keeping a closer eye on the trade tensions between the U.S. and China as they seem to be escalating further following Google's decision to pull Huawei's Android license. Kim Hye-sung reports.
Finance Minister Hong Nam-gi is warning the escalating trade tensions between the U.S. and China could affect the South Korean economy more seriously than previously thought.
The government will prepare for all possibilities and strive to minimize the impact on the local economy.
The world's two largest economies are South Korea's top two trading partners and together account for nearly 40% of the country's total exports. Given that near 80% of Seoul's exports to Beijing are intermediary goods, the Korea International Trade Association says the U.S. China trade tariffs, including Trump administration's 25% tariff hike on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods this month, could pull down South Korea's overall exports by 0.14% or more. Minister Hong said despite South Korea's record foreign currency reserves, volatility in the local financial market and $1 exchange rate have increased. He also vowed to monitor markets closely and take necessary countermeasures if required. The benchmark Kospi has fallen to a 4-month low and the Korean won has weakened to nearly 1,200 won against the greenback. To help exporters, the finance minister again called on the National Assembly to pass the extra budget bill as soon as possible, which includes over $900 million in trade-related financing and export marketing. He added the government will continue to diversify South Korea's trading partners and come up with measures to support local exporters in consumer goods and services by June. Regarding the Trump administration's announcement to delay its tariff decision on imported cars for 6 months, he said the government will continue all outreach efforts and help strengthen the competitiveness of South Korean automakers. Kim Hye-sung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, more and more reports are coming out that American tech companies are starting to cut their supplies to China's tech giant Huawei. And the question is how this is likely to affect companies here in Korea. Our Ko Ryun-hee talked to some experts on the matter.
Top IT companies in the U.S. are joining Google in cutting ties with Huawei amid the Trump administration's crackdown on Chinese tech companies. Bloomberg reported on Sunday that major semiconductor firms such as Intel and Qualcomm have told their employees that they will not supply Huawei till further notice. Analysts predict that this will hurt Huawei, the world's number 2 smartphone vendor, because it is heavily dependent on U.S. chips. And Reuters reported earlier the same day that Google has suspended all business with Huawei that requires the transfer of hardware and software products, except those covered by open-source licenses. This is a fresh blow to the Chinese company, because it relies on Google for many services, including the Android operating system, the Google Play App Store, and popular applications like YouTube. This all comes after the Trump administration added Huawei and its affiliates to a trade blacklist last week, enacting restrictions that will make it difficult for the Chinese company to buy parts and components from U.S. firms. So how will this affect companies here in Korea? On the semiconductor front, some say it might have a positive effect for small and mid-sized chip makers, since they'll have a chance to reach out to China. Experts in the field explain that there will be effects both good and bad.
For handphones, it might actually be good news because Huawei will be limited in using U.S. technology. That means there's going to be a lot of technology that Huawei cannot use that Samsung or LG can use. So there were some worries that Huawei may overtake Samsung, but it looks like Samsung may keep its position.
Many finished products such as smartphones and electronics are exported to the U.S. from China. If Korean companies provide the parts that go inside them, their exports will be negatively affected.
Asked what local companies can do amid the escalating tensions, experts recommend that firms reach out to new export destinations other than the U.S. and China. Ko Ryun-hee, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in and Denmark's Crown Prince have discussed ways to deepen bilateral relations as both nations celebrate 60 years of diplomatic ties. President Moon thanked Prince Frederik for visiting Korea with his business and cultural delegations, expressing hope the people of both countries will form closer connections. Prince Frederik echoed the president's sentiment, saying the two countries have been cooperating on sustainable development for more than 8 years. He added that he hopes meetings like today's can help expand the initiative. During their 3-day state visit, the prince and his wife, Princess Mary, are also scheduled to meet with Prime Minister Lee Na-gyeon and Danish business leaders here in Korea, as well as visit the demilitarized zone. A panel looking into the death of actress Jang Ja-yeon says that the case was not properly investigated, but stopped short of recommending a reinvestigation of the case. Jang committed suicide 10 years ago after leaving a note accusing her entertainment agency of forcing her to provide sexual services to some 30 high-profile figures. The chief of her agency and her assistant were both indicted but not charged. The panel commissioned by the Justice Ministry judged that sufficient evidence to carry out probes into the alleged sexual abuse had not been identified. It did, however, call on the prosecution to reinvestigate the chief of the entertainment agency over suspected perjury. In other news, U.S. President Donald Trump has announced the first part of his Middle East peace plan, which is to open a workshop to encourage investment in the region. The White House will reportedly hold an economic workshop in Manama, Bahrain, for 2 days from June 25th to discuss the plan, led by Trump's son-in-law and senior White House advisor Jared Kushner. The Trump administration hopes to make the area appealing to investors by focusing on infrastructure, industry and governance reforms. Kushner is said to have modeled details of the proposal on successful projects in South Korea, Poland, Japan and Singapore. The peace plan, however, has been put together without participation from the Palestinians, who have rejected it, claiming it's heavily biased towards Israel. Today is World Metrology Day, when the world celebrates the weights and measures established under the international system of units. And to mark the occasion, the kilogram has been redefined after 130 years. Choi Si-young has the details.
Scientists have come up with a new, more accurate standard for defining the kilogram. The current kilogram standard is the mass of a cylinder known as Lagrange K, which has height and diameter of just over 39 millimeters and is made of 90% platinum and 10% iridium. It is stored in a vault outside of Paris. However, the processes of oxidation and hydrocarbon contamination have added mass to the cylinder over the last 130 years. The fine change in mass is crucial to the pharmaceutical and biotechnology industries, which need accurate measurement. Starting May 20th, the World Metrology Day, the kilogram will be redefined by a new standard maintained by the Kibble balance. The balance measures the electric current required to support the weight of a standard kilogram mass in a magnetic field. Because the balance has a fixed value, it can precisely measure the weight of an object. Korean researchers are also working on reducing the measurement uncertainty of the locally developed Kibble balance.
The accuracy of South Korea's Kibble balance is slightly behind that of the world standard of the US and Canada. But with further studies done over the next 4 to 5 years, we expect to reach that world-class accuracy.
The change to the standard of mass will be crucial for high-tech industries such as semiconductor sectors. But researchers say that the change will not have a noticeable effect on our daily life. Choi Si-young, Arirang News.
Policymakers from some 70 countries have gathered in South Korea to discuss how they can work together to create peace and prosperity for people in all corners of the world. Our Kan Young-woo was there.
The United Nations Office for Sustainable Development has kicked off a 5-day executive training course for policymakers on the 2030 Agenda in the western port city of Incheon. Some of the 2030 Agenda's sustainable development goals include providing quality education for all, promoting decent employment and economic growth, reducing inequalities, tackling climate change, bringing peace, and developing global partnership.
Another thing is the lesson learned from all over the world. Yes, we're different in terms of the name of the country, but at the end of the day, it's one planet, so our issues are really close to one another.
The course will have presentations from a number of experts and participants, group discussions, and plenary seminar sessions with some 70 countries taking part.
Obstacles and challenges are part of the game, right? And as long as you understand what are the challenges and what are the problem areas, this is where you can make the difference.
The meeting also offers a networking opportunity for policymakers in central and local government and policy shapers in the private sector. Over the 5-day course, the participants will learn effective practices and strategies to help them implement the Agenda 2030 and Sustainable Development Goals in their home countries. Kanyo, Arirang News.
Parents often say their kids grow up too fast, but new research is showing that this may be the case in a much more literal and concerning sense. Our Oh Soo-young files this report on the surge of children experiencing early puberty.
The number of children experiencing premature puberty has surged in recent years, triggering concerns for their health in later life. A report published by the National Health Insurance Service on Monday shows some 95,000 children experienced premature puberty in 2017, a 42.3% jump from 2013, or an increase of 9.2% on average annually. Half of the children were aged between 5 and 9. Premature puberty happens when girls aged under 8 and boys aged under 9 begin physically developing into adults too soon. Various medical studies suggest the early onset of puberty could lead to mental and behavioural disorders, breast and ovarian cancer in girls, and testicular cancer in boys, and could stunt growth. Although the number of boys experiencing early puberty has increased at a greater rate than girls. Figures show a whopping 9 out of 10 children with the condition are female. The report cites increasing levels of pollution, which can trigger the production of hormones, which function similarly to estrogen, as the possible cause for the increase. Another major cause is a shift in food consumption to a more Western high-fat diet, as fat cells are known to produce estrogen.
The earlier the girls come into contact with such chemicals, the longer their exposure to the hormones, which generally raises the risk of premature puberty. Family medical history and personal characteristics, of course, also come into play.
The symptoms such as breast growth, the start of menstruation, and the development of sweat glands are usually treated with hormone therapy. To reduce the risk of premature puberty, doctors recommend reducing the use of plastic products in everyday life, as well as the consumption of fast food. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
May is a month for family here in South Korea, with Parents' Day and Children's Day all celebrated this month. And today marks Coming of Age Day, when tradition has it that kids turning 20 this year become adults. Our Lee Min-sun has more on a special ceremony to mark this day.
The third Monday of May is celebrated as Coming of Age Day for young South Koreans, marking their transition to adulthood. This year, some 630,000 people born in the year 2000 are starting a new chapter of their lives, which was celebrated at the Seoul Donhwamun Traditional Theater. Dozens of youth who are turning 20 years old gathered here to celebrate the coming of age with their families and friends. These celebrations date back to the early 10th century during the Goryeo dynasty. Tradition would have young men and women take on the ways of adults in their grooming and dress. The men would tie their hair into a top knot and don the traditional horsehair headdress called a kat. And the women would roll their hair into a bun with the traditional jade hairpin called a binyeo.
Our whole family came to celebrate a big day for my son.
I'm glad to be able to spend the day with my family. I also learned a lot about Hanbok. I'm looking forward to a happy life with my family. Love you, Mom and Dad.
I hadn't really thought of myself as an adult, since I'm still a student and economically dependent on my parents. But today got me thinking about what being an adult means.
Participants made their own hairpieces and listened to a brief lecture about the history of this day and their responsibilities and duties as grown-ups.
It's a ritual acknowledging that a child has become an adult. It's one way we learn to become responsible members of society.
These adults can now vote, they can drive a car, choose to get married, drink alcohol, or smoke. So events like this are held throughout the country to encourage new adults with their freedom to use it wisely. 이민선, 아리랑 뉴스.
Coffee shops are everywhere in South Korea, and finally, the country's coffee brewing is starting to gain global recognition. Last month, the local barista stood atop the global stage for the first time, being crowned the top barista in the world. Our Jong-un traveled to Busan to find out the secret of her success.
The young lady with a passionate smile is Jang Ja-yeon, the winner of the 2019 World Barista Championship. She came first out of 2,500 contenders from over 50 countries in Boston last month, becoming not only the first South Korean to win the prestigious award, but also the second woman to win the title. Her dedication to coffee making began around 10 years ago, but even then, she dreamed of being the best in the world.
At that time, people saw baristas as part-timers rather than a professional job. But when I saw the previous WBC videos, I realized that such career could also be respected by many people. Ever since then, I dreamed of standing on the world stage.
At the previous edition of the World Barista Championship in Amsterdam, Jeon finished in 14th place. But when she entered this year, she tried a slightly different approach, trying to show coffee's magnetism by delivering her presentation with genuine passion, sitting on the table addressing the judges like they went out for a casual, friendly coffee together.
The presentation contained a lot of scientific terms which were unfamiliar to many people. So in order to get closer to everyone, I came up with the idea of creating a much more friendly atmosphere when presenting my coffee.
For her winning routine, Jeon chose to focus on how carbohydrates affect the flavor balance experienced when drinking coffee. And to smoothly explain all of these scientific terms to judges in English, she traveled to the UK for 3 months.
No one can be perfect in English in 2 or 3 months. But since I'm representing my country on the world stage, I wanted to at least get rid of the fear of speaking English to others.
For Jeon, coffee is energy, not just because it's full of caffeine, but also because she heard numerous times from her customers how refreshed and recharged they felt after drinking her coffee. Becoming the Barista World Champion wasn't luck or magic. It was Jeon's positive energy towards the judges and crowds, which she has been practicing in Korea's southern city of Busan since 2009. 원정환, 아리랑 뉴스, 부산.
The Seoul Metropolitan Government has opened a Fine Dust Research Institute to oversee efforts to reduce the effects of environmental pollution in the capital. The centre will manage cooperative studies between 3 research institutes in Seoul. They will share their findings on a regular basis and select urgent problems to work on together. The institute also plans to seek international cooperation with other Northeast Asian cities, including Beijing. From Wednesday, fares for nearly half of airport shuttle buses operating between Seoul and Incheon Airport will be reduced. Prices on 23 routes will go down about $1 to roughly $11. But the discount is only available when using a transportation card or when purchasing a ticket at the airport. The South Korean women's football team are holding a ceremony in Seoul to gather support ahead of the Women's World Cup in France. They are hoping to get to the round of 16 for the second time following the 2015 Canada World Cup. South Korea will play host France in the opening match at 4 a.m. June 8th, Korea time. Yet another BTS music video has hit the 100 million view mark on YouTube. This time, it's a solo video by member V for the song Singularity. The video broke the 100 million view mark on Sunday just before 7 p.m. Korea time. This is the 20th video by BTS to have reached that milestone. That has been your 3-minute news flash. It's now time to take a look at some of the digital media content available on Arirang's social media platforms.
And today, Justin from When in Korea or Wink escapes the city life and goes hiking. Take a look.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Wink. There are actually several mountains within the Seoul area that you can easily access through the public subway, which is why a lot of people really love going hiking. 오늘은 뭐 특별한 날이라서. 네? 아, 감사합니다. 너무 좋은데? 이러고 있고 싶다, 계속. Oh my God! No! So today we'll be going up one of those great mountains, which is Achasan Mountain. Let's go. And it feels great, yeah. Actually, the weather's amazing today, but also the air. Nice, you got some music playing. 안녕하세요. 등산 왔어요? 등산 왔어요? 자주 오세요? 아니에요? 왜 이렇게 빨리 가? 너무 빠른데? 엄청, 오! 가르고, 조심해요! 아이고.
왜 짝꿍이 없어요?
예? 짝꿍이. Yo, it's an actual, 진짜 헬스장인데? It's an actual gym. 여기 자주 오시나요, 아차산?
아, 예.
자주 오세요?
예.
생각해보니까
Yes.
이 70 진짜요?
내가 여기
아니요,
올라온 지
네.
32년 됐어.
오 마이 갓. 그냥 한번 이렇게 같이 예, 살아있어. 와, did you see that? 73 years old. 와. Up, 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 up.
87세야.
와. 네? 87세시라고요? 아버님, 그 한번 저랑 80분 한번 해보실래요? 아, 한번 예.
사장님, 편하게 편한 자세로.
Ready, fight!
Oh my God!
No! 심하게. 젊은 살이 뭐?
아니요. 안 될 것 같은데.
아니, 내가 몇 점을 줄게.
안 될 것 같아. 안 될 것 같아. 아, damn. 아, 장난 아니야. Okay guys, so as you can see right behind me, there's an amazing view of the entire Seoul. Around all over Seoul, there's many mountains just like this one. 되게 날씨도 좋고 딱 자리를 아주 잘 잡으셨네요.
좋잖아요.
네, 오실 때 항상 여기 앉아요.
아, 여기도 있고 아무데나 앉아도 좋아, 여기. 좋아.
그냥 자연스럽게 마음이 가는 대로.
마음 가는 대로 사니까 내 마음이
자유롭게. 그치요. 멋있다.
오늘은 내 마음이니까 나.
야, true! true! 맞아.
The air was clear and refreshing in Seoul today thanks to a nice breeze.
That's right, but other regions are experiencing more blustery conditions. Let's get more details from our Michelle Park at the Weather Center. Michelle, what's the latest?
Hi guys, now the cool breezy wind was refreshing today, but east of Gangwon province has been under a strong wind advisory that's expected to last until tomorrow. And starting Tuesday, temperatures are expected to warm up again thanks to some sunny spells, but will remain on the cool side. And meanwhile, Tokyo can expect some rain. And the cold air means morning temperatures will be rather chilly, now below the seasonal average. Now temperatures will mostly range between the low to mid-teens. The afternoon highs in Seoul, Daejeon, Chuncheon, and also Busan will top out to 23 degrees Celsius tomorrow, while Daegu and Gyeonggi will be getting up the warmest weather. And the higher readings are expected as the week goes on, and highs are expected to mark 30 degrees by Friday for Seoul. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That will wrap it up for this edition of Arirang News. Thank you as always for watching.
Stay tuned to Arirang for more analysis on current issues and news in depth coming up next.